So I've been seeing a lot of stuff online lately, people talking about Minn Kota Ulterra trolling motors. This is the third Minn Kota Ulterra, no, second Minn Kota Ulterra that I've had. I've been running this trolling motor about 3 years. I have had zero problems with my Ulterra trolling motors. I love it. I love everything about it. Being able to run iPilot Link, I can just hit my screen on my Humminbird Solix. I can deploy it and control everything without ever having to get up. Best trolling motor I've ever owned. That being said, like anything else marine electronics related, it's all about good, clean installation and proper maintenance and use. So I'm going to cover some tips today to help you keep your Minn Kota Ulterra operating properly. So a few quick things. If you are having stow and deploy issues, you need to check your installation. Make sure that you're not experiencing any voltage drops. Take a voltmeter, put it on the plug, put it on the wiring, stow and deploy the motor, see what happens. Make sure that you don't have any installation issues, because these units are very sensitive to any kind of voltage drops. Also want to make sure, if you're running a plug, that you have the correct plug. I'll have to find the model number for that plug. I'll put it down in the description. I can't tell you how many trolling motors I've put my hands on, people having Ulterra issues, where they had a plug that wasn't the correct plug and it didn't have the proper amp rating, and it was causing issues with the trolling motor stowing and deploying. So that's one thing you want to check. The other thing you want to check if you're having stow and deploy issues is to make sure that you have a good, clean installation. As you can see here with my trolling motor, I don't have anything near it. I've got all the wires properly secured. I like to run the transducer wire and the iPilot Link wire down the inside of these cords and then through a clamshell right here on the front deck of the boat. You don't want anything at all that can bind that trolling motor. If you go to deploy one of these motors and you touch it with your hand, you'll see that they're very sensitive. They don't like any kind of bind or tension put on them. My assumption is that's a safety feature from Minn Kota. They don't want the motor deploying, somebody sticking their arm in front of it or something and getting a limb severed, so it shuts off and it gives you a motor error. So if you have a fish finder or anything else mounted up on the deck of the boat, or you have your wires run any other way, just make sure that no matter what happens, nothing is binding up and causing tension to go on that trolling motor when it's stowing and deploying, because that will cause that motor error and cause you issues. That's basic install 101, making sure that you avoid any problems. Now, preventative maintenance tips. If you will look, let me go over to this other side here, it'll be easier to see. On the back of this motor, there is a track right here, this little piece of rubber. And that track is what the motor uses to raise and lower in the stow and deploy process. So a couple of things. That track should be tight. If you look here, it's got tension on it. It's not flopping around. I can barely pull it out if I stick my finger underneath there. Right here, there's a little Allen head, and you turn this to tighten that up. Through periodic maintenance, you're going to need to tighten that up. If you use your trolling motor a lot, you want to check that track, make sure it's not loose, and take a little Allen wrench and go in and tighten that up. Take all the slack out of it, make sure it's good and tight. You don't want to over tighten it, but you don't want it flopping around in there. It should be good and tight. The other thing that you need to do is lubricate that track. Take some silicone spray, 100% silicone. You can get WD-40 silicone at any hardware store. I've heard of people using Pledge furniture polish. I don't know if that's the right thing to use or not, but I know a lot of people use it. I use 100% silicone, either WD-40 or Real Magic. and just spray down this track and lubricate the outside of it, and then lubricate the inside of it, the track portion where it's serrated. I do that about every 3 or 4 days. I'm on the water a lot more than most, but when I wipe down my boat, putting everything away, I just hit that with a little silicone. That, in combination with keeping that track good and tight, should be 100% problem free. One other thing, right here, these little latch pins on either side of the motor, there's one on each side. You want to hit those with a little bit of marine grade grease every now and then. Make sure that those are good and well lubricated. And then there's also a track inside of here. This little deal right here, silver thing, is what the motor uses to raise and lower. So when you lubricate these little latch pins right here, take these 2 screws off the side of the trolling motor, take this plate off, put a little marine grade grease on that little deal inside of there as well, and lubricate everything inside of there. There is a diagram of all this, full instructions of all this in the Ulterra manual. It's simple stuff. It doesn't take long. If you're concerned with taking the side plate off the trolling motor, taking those 2 screws out, you really shouldn't be. There's nothing that you can screw up. What I typically will do is when I hit that track with the silicone, I will also hit the inside of that, spray a little silicone on it, and then about once a month, once every 6 weeks, I'll take that side plate off and hit it with some marine grade grease, and then put some marine grade grease on these latch pins. If you'll do those things, again, voltage drops, check to make sure you don't have any, make sure you're running the correct plug, make sure you don't have anything going on with your installed close to the motor, or wiring running away that would cause the motor to bind up when it's stowing or deploying. Keep that track tight, keep it lubricated, lubricate the stop pins, and lubricate that track on the inside, right side, driver's side of the trolling motor. You should have tons of problem-free service out of your Minn Kota Ulterra. So hopefully this helps everybody. Again, this is the best trolling motor I've ever owned. I've had 1 stow deploy error in 3 years of using the Minn Kota Ulterra, and when that happened, it was my fault. I tried to deploy the motor in really, really shallow water, and when it was lower and it hit a rock and it timed out. Did exactly what it's supposed to do. If you got questions about your Minn Kota Ulterra, go down below, leave me a comment. I'll try to get back to you with some answers. Make sure you check out my other videos on iPilot Link, Humminbird tips, tricks, all that fun stuff. I'll put some links down below to some specific videos that you definitely want to make sure you check out, as well as a playlist. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and hit that bell notification. We'll be back on the water in the next video. We're going to go out and whack them and stack them.